Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom. We are coming to you today from CharrawtazaYah. This is going to be a reading of the Torah portion from the women and children of our household. If you have any questions and you happen to be a male that has popped on, please contact Isaiah Yasharahla on Facebook. Also, I think I said everything. Yeah, so this is a reading for the women and children only. If you have any questions and you're a male and you happen to pop on, please contact Isaiah Yasharahla. If you are a woman, feel free to fill the comment section up, leave a comment, contact us. Any of the five women of the household, myself, Rashwan I. Rob, Kanaya Wakanawan, Ashaya Amath, Stephanie Ligon, which is Natazar, or Kodash Yalad, all on Facebook. Also, you can contact Women of Wisdom or the Kakma's Corners YouTube page as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll be starting in Leviticus, and we'll be going over the unclean laws for after childbirth, and then infectious skin diseases is where we'll be starting at. So we'll be reading Leviticus, starting at chapter 12, going through 13. And then the prophets is going to be Ezekiel 45:16 through 46:16. And the gospel is going to be Luke 2:22-33. So with my first reader, please start reading. 22:33. So with my first, who gonna read first?
I'll read first.
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to mute myself.
All right, we're in Leviticus chapter 12, verse 1. And it reads, And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a woman have conceived seed and born a man-child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of the separation of her infirmity shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. And she shall then continue in the blood of her purification 3 and 30 days, that she shall touch no hollow thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled. But if she bear a maid child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation, and shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days. And then the days of her purification are fulfilled. For a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or turtle dove for a sin offering unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation unto the priest, who shall offer it before Yahweh and make an atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. This is the law for her that hath borne a male or female. And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, the one for the burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean. Kala Shara.
Kala Shara.
Gabar Yahweh.
Gabar Yahweh. Na'ashah.
What Nashamai.
What Nashamai.
All that Yahweh has said.
All that Yahweh has said.
What we do.
What we do
and hear.
And hear.
Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. So in that chapter, what we see here is the purification after childbirth. So should a woman have a boy, she's going to be unclean for 41 days, because you have to add that day in with the circumcision on the 8th day. So there also we read that how important it is to have your child circumcised on the 8th day, and you can actually set that up. After, you can set that up before and afterwards. And if you need help with that, reach out to Kanaya or Amos, because they've gone through that, and also CharrawtazaYah, of course. If you need help finding how to get that done for your child, because some hospitals want to rush and do everything that you don't want done. So, and then if you have a girl, you are unclean for 80 days. And we know we get some questions about why is the girl longer than the boy. For one, Yahweh said so, and for two, I think it's because the issue is long. The issue is longer when you're unclean with a girl, with most women. But we haven't found. I don't think we found, and anybody can correct me if they feel like it, but I don't think we have seen where it says exactly why there's a difference in the number. Does anybody else have anything to add to that?
Well, I just want to speak on this. I was speaking with a sister last night, and she basically was, bringing this out. The Levitical process of, the Levitical process of a son, the process of actually the circumcision, and how, it's our duty to let the people know who we are and how we go about, their circumcision. Because like you said, some doctors will try to get it done the same day, the next day, or whatever the case is. But we know that the law says basically in 8 days, to come and do their circumcision. So I think it's important for us to do these reviews, because for me to never have had a son, and for you women to bring it out because it is in the word, I think that's vital, because like I said, there are people who don't really care who we are and don't really care about the laws, and it's like, of course, we want to do everything according to law. So I just want to, kind of add commentary to that, because I think that's very important, and then you go back and say about the son, how many days we shall be unclean, and a girl, how many days we shall be unclean. I think all of these should be taken into account, especially being as though we are law keepers. A lot of us don't like to hold on to these things, because we basically don't want to be held accountable for the law of being unclean. It can be frustrating, or it can be time consuming, but the reality is the law was put into place for us to keep, and there should be no question as to why or why not.
Kind. Let me see. There's somewhere else in there. Anyone else before we move on? Yeah. Nobody?
Yes, can I?
I also want to add to that some Aquapian may think that that's something hard to do in this time frame, and it's not. All you have to do is, if you're not getting your own person to personally circumcise your son, and you go through the hospital or a doctor, all you have to do is tell them that you're a Jew. They respect that law, and they understand that the circumcision is to be done at a specific time frame. So I have given birth to 2 sons while in the truth. And when I scheduled my circumcision for both boys, I did not have an issue at all. I was able to get both boys circumcised on the 8th day with no issues.
All praises.
All praises.
Yeah, you got to use your Jew card. Don't be afraid to use your Jew card.
It comes in handy.
Time.
Not only with that, but like getting days off work and everything.
And it was your fault why your child didn't get circumcised. Okay, you're gonna feel very bad about that being in the truth. And like the scripture says, you have to bear your iniquity. Some stuff we just know within ourselves, And then remember, as we read, we're going to find out that all of our firstborn sons, our sons are to be dedicated back to Yahweh. So it's preparation. Once again, we're looking at, oh, I guess I'm starting to feel better, huh? We're going to be looking at preparation. You have 10 months to prepare if you're going to have a son. And when you get close to that home stretch, you need to prepare ahead of time so you're not frantic-y, so you're not running around, so you're not, oh my God, what am I going to do? And also so you don't have a son with a daggone turtleneck, okay? So we need to make sure that we prepare ahead of time so that our sons can be up under that covenant that our forefathers made. Now, it starts from the inside of us. We have to care enough to do it. And then once our sons are circumcised, we raise them up into the truth so they have the law within them, and they will also wear the sign of us being up under that Abrahamic covenant. I yield the floor.
Khan, does anybody have anything else to add?
Again, preparation. So I'm just going to reiterate a little bit of what he said. You have 10 months to prepare. And then what I would also suggest is as soon as you have the baby, that should be on your thought process. That should be a priority. So you can go ahead and have that scheduled on the day that it needs to be scheduled, which is the 8th day. Don't tarry. Don't wait too long, because you will run into problems and may possibly not be able to get your son circumcised on the 8th day as commanded. And I yield the floor.
Now, Kanai, when you, I remember the process with Zechariah, and it was almost a tricky one. So is it something that you can do prior to giving birth, or do you have to wait until you actually give birth because of the pediatrician?
Now, if you are planning to have someone in Yasharahla to circumcise your son, then you would be able to schedule that while you're pregnant. But if you are doing it through the pediatrician, hospital, something of that sort, your child has to be born first. So that's why I said as soon as you give birth, if you're not going through a Yasharahla, then you need to be thinking about that as soon as you have the baby. Start making them phone calls immediately. Because sometimes they be booked up. You have different reasoning as to why some women don't circumcise, in the hospital or whatever, if they're not, Yasharahla. And hospitals and the pediatricians will be booked. Like with our second son, Jeremiah, we actually kind of ran into an issue. They was trying to send us away. And we both had to say our little stuff for them to go ahead and do it that day, because they were trying to reschedule it.
So okay, so my
Never take no for an answer. Because if they make it seem like it's optional, if you allow it to be optional, then it'll be optional to them. You're standing there with your child. It is not an option. I am a Jew. No, we are Jews. Raise your voice. Use your Jew card. Don't be quiet. See? Scripture says you have not because you ask not. When you ask amiss. So I did see this sister stand up very boldly, until she was, she wouldn't be moved. We refuse to be moved. We are Jews. Put on your best Jew voice. Circumcised. We are under the covenant of Abraham. Gotta start talking like that. Because it might be a Chinese, it might be a Moabite, it might be an Arab, it might be an East Indian, it might be it might be an old wrinkly white man that's gonna understand, and they're gonna move. Yahweh's gonna move that thing for you. Go ahead, God. Use your Jew card and stand on it. It is not an option.
So My other question is I know that there are resources for us amongst Yasharahla. Is there a list of Akim that already perform these things?
That's an excellent question. We'll come back to that. We had Shia Yasharahla, who's also experienced in this arena too. Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, I had a midwife, and my midwife she did everything for me. And by the end of the night, she had somebody ready to do Zacharias. By the end of the night, the day he was born. So she went on the phone and found somebody when she found out it was a boy. We told her it was a Jew. We have to get him circumcised by the 8th day. She said, not a problem. She found one, and she said, here's his number. I had one set up on the first day he was born. So if you had a midwife, doctors know doctors, nurses know nurses. They know each other. So you're gonna find someone that's gonna find you one ASAP. So the midwife always could help too. That was it.
I mean, or any natural birthing center. If you tell them from the beginning, they usually will help you find out that information. So it's not like it can't be done. You just have to do the work to get it done. And if you know ahead of time, so like Kanai was saying, don't tarry.
Don't tarry.
Even if you don't know what you haven't yet, you should still maybe.
Salaklia. I had a midwife as well. They didn't schedule it for me, but they told me who to call. So, yeah, again, just don't tarry. And it was something else I was going to bring out, but I forgot. Salaklia, I yield the floor.
And too, I think if you don't know what you're having, still like let them know that if it's going to be a boy, what you need to do, so that can already be, you know, a part of your birthing plan and your after delivery plan. So that way, you know, you'll be ready.
Okay. Well, I just want to say all praise to the Most High for you ladies speaking on, you know, the process, the journey that you guys have been through, because like I said, for a mother who has had children but not yet a son wouldn't really understand, even though it's a law. You know, we wouldn't understand the process. And then just to hear you ladies say it's doable, you know, just to hear you ladies say, yeah, you know, I had help, you know, I had someone to steer me in the right direction, just to know that it's doable, you know, because sometimes we need to know that it can be done, even though we've never seen it done before, you know, especially for a woman who's never had a son and don't know what it's like. So I just want to say all praise to the Most High for you ladies' testimony as how the process went and what it takes to physically go through with it. Because like CharrawtazaYah said, use your Jew card. You know, you don't back down. Don't take no for an answer. And I've seen it before. You know, where these East Indians and these different nations of people who know who we are, but if we don't play the Jew card, they're not gonna. They could care less, you know. So I think it's imperative for you ladies to have that testimony and bring it out, because again, we need to know that it's doable, and we need to know that it can be done within that 8-day period. So the water, and I'll praise to the Most High, and I yield the floor.
The water, Yahweh. All right, are we ready to move on, or we got more?
Are we going to share the screen? Because I didn't share my screen, but I see your comments, Kodash, and I didn't see them when I was reading.
So I thought that it'd be best if we share the reading as we read along. And then I was willing to share the screen as we read along. So just to put that out there, you know, so that we don't just be having the people looking at a screen of us.
Okay.
All right, who's the next reader? Anybody? Kodash, you want to read?
I was just about to say, I'm about to share my screen and then I'll go ahead and read. So, accept my screen share, Baba Shah. Share. I'm sharing my screen. Let me know when you see it. Can you see it okay?
Okay, it's there.
Okay, Con. Okay, Con. All right, so we're reading Leviticus chapter 13 all the way to 59. And it reads, verse 1, and it reads, and Yahweh spake unto Moses or Masha and Aaron, saying, verse 2, when a man shall have in the skin of his flesh a rising, a scab, or bright spot, and it be in the skin of his flesh, like the plague of leprosy, then he shall be brought unto Aaron like priest, or unto one of his sons, the priests. Verse 3, and the priest shall look on the plague in the skin of the flesh, and when the hair in the plague is turned white, and the plague in sight be deeper than the skin of his flesh, it is a plague of leprosy. And the priest shall look on him and pronounce him unclean. I want to pause right here real quick because I remember speaking with a pastor one time, and I had told him, or we was having a quick dialogue or whatever, and I had asked him about this here leprosy, and he told me that that's not a sign of being unclean. And we argued, let me digress. We didn't argue, we debated, and it's funny because even though these pastors be knowing stuff, they don't really be knowing stuff for real. They know that surface level stuff. And then when you have people who like, look, this is what it say, this is what it really means, they get offended because they can't defend themselves. So this brought me back to a time a couple years ago when I had a debate with a pastor, and he was a real pastor, like a real deal pastor. And I was like, that's a sign of being unclean. And he was like, no, it isn't. So I just think this is funny how the Lord be having us go back in time with these laws. Like it's amazing. Verse 4, it reads, if the bright spot be white in the skin of his flesh, and his sight be not deeper than the skin, and the hair thereof be not turned white, then the priest shall shut up him that had the plague 7 days. And the priest shall look on him the 7th day, and behold, if the plague in his sight be as a stay, and the plague spread not in the skin, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days more. Verse 6, and the priest shall look on him again the 7th day, and behold, if the plague be somewhat dark, and the plague spread not in the skin, the priest shall pronounce him clean. It is but a scab, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. But if the scab spread much abroad in the skin, after that he had been seen of the priest for his cleansing, he shall be seen of the priest again. Verse 8, and if the priest see that, behold, the scab spread in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprosy. When the plague of leprosy is in a man, then he shall be brought unto the priest. And the priest shall see him, and behold, if the rising be white in the skin, and it have turned the hair white, and there be quick raw flesh in the rising, it is an old leprosy in the skin of his flesh. And the priest shall pronounce him unclean, and shall not shut him up, for he is unclean. Verse 12, and if leprosy break out abroad in the skin, and the leprosy cover all the skin of him that had the plague, from his head even to his foot, wheresoever the priest looketh, then the priest shall consider, and behold, if the leprosy have covered all his flesh, he shall pronounce him clean that had the plague. It is all turned white, he is clean. Verse 14. But when raw flesh appeared in him, he shall be unclean. And the priest shall see the raw flesh and pronounce him to be unclean, for the raw flesh is unclean. It is leprosy. Or if the raw flesh turn again and be changed into white, he shall come unto the priest. And the priest shall see him, and behold, if the plague be turned into white, then the priest shall pronounce him clean that had the plague. He is clean. Verse 18, the flesh also in which, even in the skin thereof, was a boil, and is healed. And in the place of the boil, there be a white rising, or a bright spot, white and somewhat reddish, and it be showed to the priest. And if when the priest seeth it, behold, it be in sight lower than the skin, and the hair thereof be turned white, the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It was a plague of leprosy broken out of the boil. Verse 21. But if the priest look on it, and behold, there be no white hairs therein, and if it be not lower than the skin, but be somewhat dark, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days. And if it spread much abroad in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague. But if the bright spot stay in his place and spread not, it is a burning boil, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. Or if there be any flesh in the skin whereof there is a hot burning, and the quick flesh that burneth have a white bright spot, somewhat reddish or white, then the priest shall look upon it, and behold, if the hair in the bright spot be turned white, and it be in sight deeper than the skin, it is a leprosy broken out of the burning, wherefore the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is the plague of leprosy. But if the priest look on it, and behold, there be no white hair in the bright spots, and it be lower, and it be no lower than the other skin, but be somewhat dark, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days. Verse 27. And the priest shall look upon him the 7th day, and if it be spread much abroad in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is the plague of leprosy. And if the bright spot stay in his place and spread not in the skin, but it be somewhat dark, it is a rising of the burning, and the priest shall pronounce him clean, for it is an inflammation of the burning. Verse 29. If a man or one man have a plague upon the head or the beard, then the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it be in sight deeper than the skin, and there be in it a yellow thin hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a dry scald or scale, even a leprosy upon the head or beard. Verse 31. And if the priest look on the plague of the scald, and behold, it be called not in the sight deeper than the skin, excuse me, and that there is no black hair in it, then the priest shall shut up him that had the plague of the scald 7 days. And in the 7th day, the priest shall look on the plague, and behold, if the scald spread not, and there be in it no yellow hair, and the scald be not in sight deeper than the skin, he shall be shaven, but the scald shall he not shave, and the priest shall shut up him that had the scald 7 days more. And in the 7th day, the priest shall look on the scald, and behold, if the scald be not spread in the skin, nor be in sight deeper than the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. Verse 35. But if the scald spread much in the skin after his cleansing, then the priest shall look on him, and behold, if the scald be spread in the skin, The priest shall not seek for yellow hair. He is unclean. But if the skull be in his sight at a stay, and that there is black hair grown up therein, the skull is healed. He is clean, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. If a man also or a woman have in the skin of their flesh bright spots, even white bright spots, then the priest shall look, and behold, if the bright spots in the skin of their flesh be darkish white, it is a freckle spot that groweth in the skin. He is clean. The man whose hair is falling off his head, he is bald, yet he is clean. And he that had his hair falling off from the part of his head toward his face, he is forehead bald, yet is he clean. Verse 42. And if there be in the bald heads or bald foreheads a white reddish sore, it is a leprosy sprung up in his bald head or his bald forehead. Then the priest shall look upon it, and behold, if the rising of the sore be white reddish in his bald head or in his bald forehead, as the leprosy appeared in the skin of the flesh, he is a leprous man. He is unclean. The priest shall pronounce him utterly unclean. His plague is in his head. Verse 45. And the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent, and his head bare, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip, and shall cry, unclean, unclean. Verse 46. All the days wherein the plague shall be in him, he shall be defiled. He is unclean. He shall dwell alone. Without the camp shall his habitation be.
Okay, so likely, Shalom, before you read on, because it's going to switch. It's going to switch into something else. So before that, Nakwa, I think you're holding something. Exodus 12, I believe. Let's see what that says about leprosy, because that 1 through 46 was all about leprosy and boils. So, Nakwa, can you bring out Exodus 12, please?
Khan. Exodus chapter 12, verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of month. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Yasharahla, saying, In the 10th day of this month, they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house, take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month in the whole. And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, in the whole assembly of the congregation of Yasharahla shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two sides posts of the upper doorpost of the house, wherein they shall eat it.
Verse Numbers 12. Let's start at Numbers 12. So what we see, Mashpakai, is we are in this season. What's the next holy day coming up that we have? That's a real big deal.
Pesach.
Pesach, all right? And the quad did an excellent job of bringing out the Pesach time frame. Okay, so if we have anybody that's unclean, then if you're Tama'ah during this time frame, then no, you will not be able to participate in a convocation with everybody else that is set apart during the Pesach. Okay, so if you have a leprosy that's broken out, if you have a gonorrhea, if you have, and Lamadi, I believe we're going to bring out a scripture on that because that goes into this time frame we're looking at also. If you give birth and you're unclean, Yahweh's giving us a makeup Sabbath, makeup Passover, which is the next month. So with that being said, it's not unlawful for, if you're unclean, to keep the Shabbat with somebody else that's unclean. That's not unlawful. Okay, we have Leviticus chapter 5 and we have Numbers chapter 5 to both show that every unclean person was put out the camp. So again, the Quad did an excellent job of bringing out the Pesach Passover time frame, the Wada Banath, for reminding us that the Pesach is upon us and we must make sure we're set apart if we're unclean. What are you holding the Quad now? What I asked you to get?
Oh, you said to read Exodus 12, verse 1, starting at verse 1 to 6.
No, Numbers 12, honey. Numbers 12.
Watch that.
Numbers 12 starting verse 12. All right. Go ahead, pick that up from there, and then we'll hand the floor back to
Numbers chapter 12, verse 1. And Miriam and Aaron spake.
Great job. So we see who the subject is, right? Who's the main subject, Naquan?
Miriam and Aaron.
All right.
And Miriam and Aaron spake against Masha because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, hath Yahweh indeed spoken only by Masha? Have he not spoken also by us? And Yahweh heard it. Now the man, Masha, was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. And Yahweh spake suddenly unto Masha, and unto Aaron, and unto Miriam, come out ye three unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out. And Yahweh came down in the pillar of the cloud, and stood in the door of the tabernacle, and called Aaron and Miriam, and they came forth. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, Yahweh, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Masha is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches. In the similitude of Yahweh shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Masha? And the anger of Yahweh was kindled. He departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Masha, alas, my lay not the sin upon us. We have done foolishly. Let us not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed, when he cometh out of his mother's womb.
Excellent job. Read that last part again. All right, Bakushah, let us not be as one what? Half what?
Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed, when he cometh out of his.
Excellent reading. Excellent reading. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pass the floor back to Rashwan and then Tawada for bringing that out in the choir. Great job. So we see that this leprosy is a big deal, you know, of not having the melanin that we have is considered to be leprosy. And as the sister Quadash said, you know, some of these pastors argue this, but the reason that they have to argue this is that means once they confess to this, they have to admit to all of their white benefactors, all their Caucasian, you know, some of my best friends are white. There's nothing wrong with saying that, you know. Hey, so, you know, like they say some of my best friends are black, you know. Okay, well, some of my best friends are white. So they would have to admit that leprosy is a deficiency of melanin from the hair to the eyes to the skin to the confession that the sun even destroys them for staying in the sun too long. Okay, so Miriam became leprous, all right, as one half dead. So yes, pastors have to confess and admit, you know, they have to tell the truth, but they'll have a hard time doing that. All right, or they'll say that, you know, that's a racist statement. But Flavius Josephus, the historian, says the same thing. Okay, Lamadia, are you available? Read your account from Flavius Josephus on leprosy and uncleanness.
He can't be heard.
You have to speak a little bit louder. Make sure your mouth is in the mic.
Josephus, book 3,
Louder. You're going to have to come all the way into the phone.
I'm right on the phone.
Let me turn the music all the way down.
Can I be heard now?
Con.
Okay.
That's real strong.
Okay. Slow up there.
He's echoing with something.
Somebody's got to mute.
Slow up. Give me a second. I have to leave the Zoom. Okay. This is Flavius Josephus, Book 3, paragraph 261. He also ordered that those whose bodies were afflicted with leprosy and that had a gonorrhea should not come into the city. Nay, he removed the women when they had their natural purgation till the 7th day, after which he looked on them as pure and permitted them to come in again.
Somebody, hold on one second. Great reading. Somebody please break down, what does natural purgation mean pertaining to a woman? Anybody?
The discharge, the woman's discharge.
Her natural discharge.
Yeah.
Right. Excellent answer. So purgation, it's a word that goes into the word. Listen to the core word of it. Purge. Purge. So her natural purgation is when her body is purging, as the sister said, you know, their natural discharge. But, you know, not of the other source, but as we know of the time frame when the woman is purging. So sometimes when we're teaching, this is a terminology that we can use that will help sisters to understand more better. You know, I don't know if that's correct, but I like saying it more better. You know, what's actually happening in that time frame. This is the natural purgation. And also, when you're looking up about the flower, you can use this terminology also, the natural purgation. Okay, so start from the top of that one more time, Lamadia, and we're going to see the separation and understanding clean and uncleanliness. Go ahead, Qur'an.
He also ordered that those whose bodies were afflicted with leprosy and that had a gonorrhea should not come into the city. Nay, he removed the women when they had their natural purgation to the 7th day, after which he looked on them as pure and permitted them to come in again. The law permits those also who have taken care of funerals to come in after the same manner when this number of days is over. But if any continue longer than that number of days in a state of pollution, the law appointed the offering. The law appointed the offering 2 lambs for a sacrifice, the one for which they are to purge by fire, and for the other the priests take it for themselves. In the same manner do those sacrifice who have had the gonorrhea. But he that shed his seed in his sleep, if he go down into cold water, has the same privilege with those that have lawfully accompanied with their wives.
Stop right there. All right, stop right there. Can anybody explain that last part of what Lamadia just read? All right, read that again. Of he that has shed his seed when?
But he that sheds his seed in his sleep, if he go down into cold water, hath the same privilege with those that have lawfully accompanied with their wives.
What does that mean, anybody?
That means having sex.
No.
He had a wet dream.
Oh, in his sleep.
He himself had a nocturnal, so for a woman, it would be called a natural purgation for the time frame of her flower. And wet dream is a terminology that we use because we learned it, and there's nothing wrong with it. But let's use this terminology also. Nocturnal emission. Nocturnal emission can be found, you know, by the contemporaries of Flavius Josephus as a term that means the same thing. Nocturnal, nighttime, and then emission. You know, there was a release, so AKA a wet dream. So when a man has a nocturnal emission, is he unclean? Khan or la'ah? Khan. So he has a nocturnal emission, Khan. He is now officially tama'ah. And read the rest of what Josephus says. He said he gets to have the same privilege. He's going to be unclean and he's got to shower. Just like who? Just like what type of person, Lamadia? Read that again.
What'd you say?
Read that part again. Just about the nocturnal emission.
But he that sheds his seed in his sleep, if he go down into cold water, has the same privilege that it's like with those that have lawfully accompanied with their wives.
See? So the same privilege as those that lawfully accompanied with their wives, because both of these men have had an emission. One of them was not with a woman. It was, you know, it was purely involuntary, but it's on the same category as if he had a relation with his rib. Okay, go ahead and read. Finish that up.
And for the lepers, he suffered them not to come into the city at all, nor to live with any others.
For Miriam, she was separated. So if anybody was a leper with the discoloration of the skin, all right, vitiligo, discoloration of the skin, all right, boils, gonorrhea, any sickness, they had to be separated from us. They were not allowed to come into the city. They had to stay on the outskirts. They had to stay on the outside. And as we read, had to proclaim themselves unclean, unclean, which is why the House of CharrawtazaYah, we have a principle. When that flower drops, you let everybody know that you're unclean. It's not a shameful thing. We just read that in the scriptures to where Yahweh told us to tell others that we're unclean. Right? Even I myself, I'll separate myself, and I won't dap up the son, my binding. I won't dap them up. They'll know it. I'll just give them a respectful nod. I'll put my hand to my chest, and I'll kind of like bow my head, shake my fist, and they'll understand. They don't ask no questions. Because if you are unclean, and if you purposefully make somebody unclean, you have just caused them to sin. Now they are unclean and guilty, as the scripture says. Let me say it like that. They are now unclean and guilty, which is why we also do not promote having sex on the Sabbath. We don't care what school or congregation says it's okay. It is not. I yield the floor. Go ahead, continue with the reading. And then pass the floor back to the facilitator.
Lottie, are you finished?
Allah.
Okay, finish, please.
And for the lepers, he suffered them not to come into the city at all, nor to live with any others, as if they were in effect dead persons. But if anyone had obtained by prayer to Yahweh the recovery from that distemper, and had gained a healthful complexion again, such a one returned thanks to Yahweh with several sorts of sacrifices, concerning which we will speak hereafter.
That word that was used there, a helpful what?
Complexion.
A helpful what?
Complexion.
A helpful complexion. So this shows us the same thing that Naquan read from what happened with Miriam. She lost her complexion. All right, so everybody keep that in mind. All right, I yield the floor.
That's it on that.
Salak, you said that's the end?
Go.
Okay, come on. Hallelujah. I just want to give a reminder. I'm looking at some of the comments before we move on. If you don't get a response from Isaiah, if you are saying shalom to him, that's because this reading, he is on here. He's just in the background today. This reading is being done by his ribs and his children. So those comments are not being ignored. But if you're a man, I will not be responding to them. But Shabbat Shalom Yasharahla. So I just wanted to put out that reminder as I'm seeing the comments come in. Okay, we're going to get back to the Torah portion. We left off at Leviticus 13:47. Qudash, do you want to read or do you want me to pick it up?
Khan, if you don't mind, you can finish it out. I do want to add some commentary about what I did just read. So what we just read was basically, how people, the men and the women would go to the priest, and they would basically he would examine them. And so if he found just a little spot, he would say, okay, come back in 7 days. And then if the spot is still there, or if it's spread, then you are therefore unclean. But then just to know that if you break out with a white spot and your white spot automatically spread, you are therefore unclean. So just to break down what it looks like to be unclean and clean. I think that's it's a good reading because a lot of us don't know that leprosy is a sign of being unclean. We think it's just a condition of it's a skin condition, of course, but that skin condition is a sign of you being unclean. So the process is they will go to the priest, and the priest would examine them, and then if he feel like they was unclean, then they had to be set apart. Or if he felt like he didn't spread, and it was just a burn or it was just a spot, then you are therefore clean. So just like CharrawtazaYah was saying, how when our flour and stuff comes, we are required to be set apart, right? And if we know ourselves to be unclean and we cause someone else to be unclean, then that sin is on our hand, and then they are therefore you know, at that point they're unclean, you know, by default. And like basically the sin is on your hands. So I just wanted to bring that out of what I read, and if you don't mind, you can finish out, and I'll continue to share my screen.
Okay. But Kanya, it is very important to make sure that you are. I know with the uncleanness, like people have their different opinions on where you should be, what you can do, what you cannot do. But like for me, it's just very important that we remember. I mean, we never know who the person we dealing with might have to go out and, you know, teach or talk to someone else, and we want to make sure that we're not making others unclean because we're unclean. So, you know, it is important. And, you know, it comes with time, though. It comes with time. And remembering and reminding people. So, all right. So we're gonna start at Leviticus 13, verse 47, and here we're going into like mildews, like. So, okay. So I'm actually gonna start one verse up just to go into 47. 46. All the days wherein the plague shall be in him, he shall be defiled. He is unclean. He shall dwell. Select there. There we go. He shall dwell alone. Without the camp shall his habitation be. 47. The garment also that the plague of leprosy is in, whether it be a woolen garment or a linen garment, whether it be the warp or woof of linen, or of woolen, whether in a skin or in anything made of skin. And if the plague be greenish or reddish in the garment or in the skin, either in the warp or in the woof, or in anything of skin, it is a plague of leprosy, and shall be shown unto the priest. And the priest shall look upon the plague and shut up it that hath the plague 7 days. And he shall look on the plague on the 7th day. If the plague be spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in a skin, or in any work that is made of skin, the plague is a fretting leprosy. It is unclean. He shall therefore burn that garment, whether warp or woof, in woolen or in linen, or anything of skin wherein the plague is, for it is a fretting leprosy. It shall be burnt in the fire. 53. And if the priest shall look, and behold, the plague be not spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in anything of skin, then the priest shall command that they wash their thing within wherein the plague is, and he shall shut it up 7 days more. And if the priest shall look on the plague, after that it is washed, and behold, if the plague have not changed his color, and the plague be not spread, it is unclean. Thou shalt burn it in the fire. It is fret inward, whether it be bare within or without. And if the priest look and behold, the plague be somewhat dark after the washing of it, then he shall rend it out of the garment, or out of the skin, or out of the warp, or out of the woof. 57. And if it appears still in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in anything of skin, it is a spreading plague, and shall burn. Thou shalt burn that wherein the plague is with fire. And the garment, either warp or woof, or whatsoever thing of skin it be, which thou shalt wash, if the plague be departed from them, then it shall be washed the second time, and shall be clean. This is the law of the plague of leprosy in a garment of woolen or linen, either in the warp or the woof or anything of skins, to pronounce it clean or to pronounce it unclean. Call out Sharah.
This sound has dramatically changed. It's went down very much. You might have to readjust or try something again. And lastly, okay, cool. And then when we finish this, we need all of our sisters that are garment makers, you know, and even those that are not, we need our youth to understand what is this talking about. Okay, so after we read it, we're gonna have to give a very sufficient breakdown so that everybody understands this, because the Father keeps us safe even in the clothes that we wear. Okay, go ahead. I yield the floor.
Call Shara. Debar Yahweh. Naisha. All that Yahweh has said.
All that Yahweh has said.
What we do. And here. Hallelujah.
I like to point out those 7 days, though. You know, it's imperative. I know we argue about the 7 days of being unclean and stuff like that, but it's imperative. You know, even the priest was saying, even if you're not unclean, you still need to get 7 days for me to see that you're clean or not clean. You know, so you know that 7 day period is a real thing.
Welcome.
One of the sisters asked, so if you are unclean, you cannot teach.
When you're unclean, here's it. I mean, you don't want to come in contact with anybody, so I'm not going to say you can't teach, because we can teach like this. I don't have to be in front of you. I don't think it says you can't teach like this way. I don't think you should be in front of a person. This is speaking from a woman, I guess, and a man too. But if I'm on my cycle, I'm not thinking I'm going to be gathered with clean people to teach, because you can't be a part of a holy convocation when you're unclean. So if you're with other unclean women, then yeah, I mean, you can still have a Bible study, or you know, amongst you all, but you can't be mixed with clean people. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that.
Well, I'm just reading comments, and right now one of the sisters was saying that, you know, our flower fluctuates. You know, women, you know, it's different time frame for different women. And she was basically saying, you know, so what we're saying right now, what we just read, is that women, if you're unclean, you can gather with more other unclean women. But when you're unclean, when you have your flower or whatever caused you to be unclean, you should be set apart. You know, the whole idea of being unclean is to set yourself apart for 7 days. You know, yeah, so that goes with cooking and gathering and etc. But if you're unclean and you're around other unclean people, then, you know, that's lawful. You know, you guys are all unclean. You guys can fellowship or whatever the case is. But the primary reason of us going over this is to show the discipline in being unclean is to be set apart, you know, for at least 7 days.
Well, and then, too, you got to remember what you're being set apart from, because it's not always 7 days. As we know, like if you're a man and you come in contact with a person that's unclean, like you just touch, if my head touched me and I'm unclean, then what we do is you're unclean too until sundown, and you wash and you bathe. But if a man came in contact with a woman's blood, or, you know, blood, and I'm just using woman because this is how I do the 7 days. So if you come in contact with the actual blood, then that man is unclean or that other person, doesn't have to be a man, is also unclean for 7 days. So like if you have a running issue, which I think that's going to be like, that's coming up. That's coming up in a couple more portions, but if you have a running issue, then I know you're unclean until that issue stops. And so you have to remember what you're unclean for before you decide on the days. And as far as like being unclean on your cycle, we do know that they so what if you don't know if someone is unclean? Well, that's the thing. Like, we don't always know who's unclean because we're in Babylon. So everybody's not walking around like, I'm unclean, I'm on my cycle, We don't know that. So remember, we're practicing righteous acts. So if you are in the truth and you're around others that are like-minded, they should be, one, they shouldn't be there because they're unclean. Let's start there. But if they are there, or if they go by different, because we do know that there's some people that go by different doctrines, then, that's why we make it a point in our household to let everyone know we're unclean, because you don't want to accidentally make someone else unclean. So, I mean, we're unclean every day because of where we live. We're in Babylon right now. So our thing is doing the things that we need to do to practice those righteous acts so that we are pleasing to the Most High. Because we're not going to know who we're touching that's unclean. We're just not. So.
And that's why we just read that too.
Hold on a second. I'm going to interject for a moment. So to get back to the two questions that was asked, and that you were given an excellent edification. The one sister said, I believe, what was the question? Can you not be around people when you're unclean? And that was addressed. That was answered. We're going to also answer it with scriptures. We're also going to answer with scripture the concept of coming into contact with somebody that's unclean. And whoever the two that asked these questions, those were excellent questions, and they'll both be answered with let's start with Numbers chapter 5 and verse 1, and then we're going to do Leviticus chapter 5 and verse 1. So you two sisters get those. The one will show that when we are unclean, we are to be set apart, and we can be around other unclean people. All right. And we've already read that, but it may have been missed. But we'll read it again in Numbers chapter 5, and then we'll read about the responsibility of when I know I'm unclean. I should not be walking up and dapping up my brothers. I shouldn't be hugging them. It's my responsibility to let you know, I'm clean. Because you might have been fasting and praying all day. You might have been trying to get a breakthrough spiritually, something like that. And then, me, I might have been willy-nilly, and I made myself unclean. Now I come and I contract that uncleanliness onto you. Okay, so let's read that real quick. Numbers chapter 5, verse 1. And anybody want to take it, they can take it. Everybody needs to make sure they take notes, though. And then also Leviticus chapter 5, verse 1. I yield the floor.
Okay, so I'm reading from Leviticus 5 and 1, and it reads, and if a soul sin and hear the voice of swearing, and is a witness, whether he had seen or known of it, if he do not utter it, then he shall bear his iniquity. Or if a soul touch any unclean thing, whether it be a carcass of an unclean beast, or a carcass of an unclean cattle, or the carcass of unclean creeping things, and if it be hidden from him, he also shall be unclean and guilty. Verse 3, or if he touch the uncleanness of man, whatsoever uncleanness it be, that a man shall be defiled withal, and it be hid from him, when he knoweth of it, then he shall be guilty. Verse 4, or if a soul swear, pronouncing with his lips to do evil or to do good, whatsoever it be that a man shall pronounce with an oath, and it be hid from him, when he knoweth of it, then he shall be guilty in one of these.
Excellent. Now stop right there. Read verse 3 again, please.
Verse 3, Leviticus 5 and 3, and it reads, or if he touch the uncleanness of man, whatsoever uncleanness it be, that a man shall be defiled withal, and it be hid from him, when he knoweth of it, then he shall be guilty.
So there's the answer right there for whoever's asking. And we had to learn this too. So even if we don't know about it, we are unclean and guilty. That's why it's so important to make yourself be set apart, to respect when you know you're unclean, whether you're male or whether you're female, and to respect that others might be operating in a capacity of wanting to be set apart, the Kodash. So we make that person unclean and guilty. This is why sex on the Sabbath is not permissible. No, we will not find a scripture that says, thou shalt not have sex on the Sabbath. But we will find scriptures that say, thou shalt sanctify the Sabbath day and keep it Kodash, which means holy, which means set apart. So when we operate and we come into contact, whatsoever uncleanliness it shall be, that a man be defiled with all, he shall be unclean, he shall be guilty. All right. Before we go to Numbers 5, looking at is it okay to be around people when we're unclean? I would suggest that if you know you're going to be unclean and you're a sister and your flower syncs up with other sisters, then use that time as a time to be set apart with other sisters. All right. And when the one sister's like, girl, it's my last day of being unclean, throw her a going away party. Well, you about to go, okay, I'll meet you soon. We over here with the rest of the unclean sisters till it's my time. All right. So does anybody have anything that they want to add on to Leviticus chapter 5? All right, read verse 3 again, just to give everybody a chance to hear it again. Read that.
Or if he touched the uncleanness of man, whatsoever uncleanness it be, that a man shall be defiled withal, and it be hid from him, when he knoweth of it, then he shall be guilty.
On that, add to it, make suggestions, questions. Okay, let's go to chapter 5, the book of Numbers.
Numbers chapter 5, verse 1. And if a soul sin and hear the voice of swearing, and is a witness whether he hath seen or known.
Excuse me. We were doing Leviticus and Numbers, so go to the other one. Excuse me, Leviticus 5.
I was reading Leviticus.
Go to Numbers. My bad. I just read Leviticus. Do Numbers 5.
You read Numbers already, didn't you?
I read Leviticus accidentally.
Okay. I'm like, hold on, I'm confused. I'm confused. All right. Numbers 5. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, command the children of Yasharahla that they put out of the camp every leper and every one that hath an issue, and whosoever is defiled by the dead. Both male and female shall ye put out. Without the camp shall ye put them, that they defile not their camps in the midst whereof I dwell. Go on.
Go ahead. Break that down.
Break it down or keep reading?
You can go ahead and explain it, because there's the answer to what the sister asked. All right, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So what it's saying is that Yahweh commanded Moshe to tell us that if anyone is unclean with any issue, flow, gush, discharge, blood, touching a dead carcass, whatever, you shall be put out of the camp, and then so that you don't defile it. Both male and female shall be put out. Without the camp shall you put them, that they defile not their camp. So they should be set apart as well.
Excellent. So we see that this person, whoever it is, they're not by themselves, they're with others. So they're not alone in being unclean. They're with others that are also unclean. And does the week continue to roll through? It does. The week doesn't stop going through. It's still Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Shabbat. You just keeping the Shabbat with others that are talking about not unclean with you. See? So it's not awful. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, it really comes down to also, people just being honest and truthful. You know, just because you want to be around someone and you know you're unclean, you still got to be truthful, because you're going to be held liable for what you do and how you make that other person unclean. So you have to be truthful with yourself and with other people, no matter what, no matter how you feel, no matter how bad you want to be in that area with the other person, you know. So I'll be truthful.
I believe that should be sufficient. Is there any other questions that came through that any Akwatyan want to ask or have asked, or does anybody want to address anything else before we move forward? If so, please make sure, because this is family time. So we're speaking to each other, we're helping each other. All right, we're addressing things. Are you?
Let's see. Mama Jerry said, because if a person is coming from out of town on an unclean bus, then comes in contact with a clean breed, then what is one to do? And we unknowingly, I believe this is a great edification message from Yahweh. So what is the best option to keep everyone safe? It's a great question. I say shower before sundown. Because
that's the answer to the question. Amen. Excellent. You just bathe before sundown. Go ahead.
Just bathe before sundown. So when you get here on the 13th, for Passover, you just gonna shower. That's all. So don't you worry, because I know that'll be another worry of hers. So don't worry. You're gonna be okay. I think that's it. Yeah. All right. So that was the end of the was there anything else from the Torah portion, CharrawtazaYah? I mean from the law portion. If not, we can move on to the prophet. All right, can we get a new reader for the prophets? Anyone? Natazar? Lottie?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to be going to Ezekiel 45.
Should I share?
Starting at
or somebody else
16. Kudash, you going to share that?
She can share her screen, because I was under the impression that we was reading from 2 Kings, so I gotta pull everything up to lock it.
Okay.
Can y'all see? Can y'all see? Did I push it?
Well, I don't see it up yet.
Screen share was canceled.
I didn't even see it come up. So.
Oh, because I didn't highlight it. That's why. All right.
All right, there you go.
Y'all see it?
Karen.
Okay, Karen. All right, Ezekiel. It is 45. We're starting at verse 16. All right. And it reads, I guess I'll read all of 45, I guess. And all the people of the land shall give this oblation for the prince in Israel. And it shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings and meat offerings and drink offerings in the feasts and in the new moons and in the Sabbaths and all solemnity of the house of Israel. And he shall prepare the sin offering and meat offering and the burnt offering and the peace offering to make reconciliation for the house of Israel. Verse 18. Thus saith Yahweh, thus saith Yahweh Alahayah, in the first month, in the first day of the month, thou shalt take a young bullock without blemish and cleanse the sanctuary. And the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering and put it upon the posts of the house and upon the four corners of the settle of the altar and upon the posts of the gate of the inner court. And so thou shalt do the 7th day of the month for every one that erreth, and for him that is simple. So shall ye reconcile the house. In the first month, in the 14th day of the month, ye shall have the Passover, a feast of 7 days. Unleavened bread shall be eaten. And upon that day shall the prince prepare for himself and for all the people of the land a bullock for a sin offering. 7 days of the feast he shall prepare a burnt offering to Yahweh, 7 bullocks and 7 rams without blemish, daily the 7 days, and the kid of the goats daily for a sin offering. And he shall prepare a meat offering of an ephah for a bullock, and the ephah for a ram, and a hin of oil for an ephah, which are measurements. In the 7th month, in the 15th day of the month, shall he do the like in the feast of the 7 days, according to the sin offering, and according to the bullock offering, and according to the meat offering, and according to the oil. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, read on. Or we're going to have a next reader. Next reader come up. All right, so let's be quick about it, though. Don't everybody come all at once, all right? But everybody's excited to read the Torah portion and so happy that they get the opportunity. Remember, the scripture says there is no praise in the Most High in the grave. So don't miss your opportunity. So let's go ahead and get the next reader. We're going to go through the prophet portion. All right, the prophet portion coincides with the Torah. All right, also seeing what Yahweh's mother did when she was born. All right, so let's finish up the prophet portion. Naquan, go ahead and pick it up. All right, Naquan.
Khan.
Go ahead.
Ezekiel chapter 46, verse 1. Thus saith Yahweh Alahayah, the gate of the inner court that looketh towards the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be opened. And the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate without, and shall stand by the post of the gate, and the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offering, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate. Then he shall go forth, but the gate shall not be shut unto the even. Likewise, the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before Yahweh in the Sabbath and in the new moons. And the burnt offering that the prince shall offer unto Yahweh in the Sabbath day shall be 6 lambs without blemish, and a ram without blemish. And the meat offering shall be an ephah for a ram, and a meat offering for the lambs as he shall be able to give, and an hin of oil to an ephah. And in the 6th day of the new moon it shall be a young bullock without blemish, and 6 lambs and a ram, they shall be without blemish. And he shall prepare a meat offering, an ephah for a bullock, and an ephah for a ram, and for the lambs according as his hand shall attain unto, and an hin of oil to an ephah. And when the prince shall enter, he shall go in by the way of the porch of the gate, and he shall go forth by the way thereof. But when the people of the land shall come before Yahweh in the solemn feast, he that entereth in by the way of the north gate to worship shall go out by the way of the south gate, and he that entereth by the way of the south gate shall go forth by the way of the north gate. He shall not return by the way of the gate whereby he came in, but shall go forth over against it. And the prince in the midst of them, when they go in, shall go in, and when they go forth, shall go forth. And in the feast, and in the solemnity, the meat offering shall be an ephah to a bullock, and an ephah to a ram, and to the lambs as he is able to give, and an hin of oil to an ephah. Now when the prince shall prepare a voluntary burnt offering or peace offering voluntarily unto Yahweh, one shall then open him the gate that looketh towards the east, and he shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offering as he did on the Sabbath day. Then he shall go forth, and after his going forth, one shall shut the gate. Thou shalt daily prepare a burnt offering unto Yahweh of a lamb of the first year without blemish. Thou shalt prepare it every morning, and thou shalt prepare a meat offering for it every morning, in the 6th part of an ephah, and the 3rd part of an hin of oil to temper with the fine flour. A meat offering continually by a perpetual ordinance unto Yahweh. Thus shall they prepare the lamb and the meat offering and the oil every morning for a continual burnt offering. Thus saith Yahweh, if the prince give a gift unto any of his sons, the inheritance thereof shall be his sons. It shall be their possession by inheritance. But if he give a gift of his inheritance to one of his servants, then it shall be his to the year of liberty. After it shall return to the prince, but his inheritance shall be his sons for them. Moreover, the prince shall not take the people's inheritance by oppression to thrust them out of their possession, but he shall give his sons inheritance out of his own possession, that my people be not scattered every man from his possession. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Anyone want to break that down, or any words to say for that? Anybody?
And then Lamadia will go after you. All right. And then each person in his own turn, name off something that you heard that you learned.
Can you repeat the beginning of that? Because I didn't hear. All I heard was Lamadia will go after you.
Name off something that you just heard, that you just learned. Start with Nakwa, then go to Lamadia. If you need help, then we will read it again. All right, go ahead.
From this chapter in Ezekiel? I didn't fully understand this.
That's excellent. That's excellent. All right. Lamadia, would you like to go? There's a lot in here. All right. We see the courses of how what we're looking at initially is, look at this, Laquan. When the captains or the princes or the Shatarium, the officers, when it was time for us to appear in front of Yahweh, we had to bring our sacrifices. When we had to bring our sacrifices to the altar, if I came in through the south, then I had to leave through the north. So it was a constant rotation of officers, men of the Most High, bringing sacrifices into the temple of the Most High. Okay, a constant rotation of offerings being brought in. Okay, that's one thing that's presented. Another thing that we see is, Lamadia, do you want to bring anything forward? I don't want to break everything down. I want to make sure that you all are hearing something new each time and presenting what you hear. Okay, and it's going to happen little by little. All right, Lamadia, did you hear anything?
Not really. I'm trying to. I don't really see where it correlates, because you know how, like, you know, a prophet in the gospel usually correlates with the. So I'm not really seeing it.
Okay. Would any of the Amium like to bring anything forward that they seen?
I was actually going to ask the same question that Lottie just asked. I'm looking. I see the offerings, but was there any like purification or like?
Well, I know it starts off saying, like you was saying, CharrawtazaYah, it was saying, first it was saying that the gate was going to be closed for the 6 days, right? And then on the Sabbath, of course, they was going to open it, and then on New Moon, they was going to open it, and then like Rashwan was saying, it starts to go into the offerings and the burnt offerings, and then the peace offerings. And they're talking about worshiping at the gates, in the Shabbat, in the new moons, of course. And then just going back into the sacrifices, they're saying about the lambs without blemish, of course, being clean. You want to sacrifice everything that's clean and perfect into Yahweh. I mean, that's basically what I see, but I digress.
I actually have a question about the prince. Like, are we talking about a title, a person who is set apart, a chief officer or a governor? Or are we talking about a prince's offering? Are we talking about Yahawashi, an offering to Yahweh, to Yahweh? Like, specifically, when they say prince, what are they referring to?
Well, each community of each tribe had a captain over there. So there would be a prince or a captain over the tribe of Issachar, over the tribe of Levi, over the tribe of Khan. So we had charges to bring forward offerings at certain time frames. So these would just be elder men that was over the camp at the time. When I say camp, I mean the camp of Judah, the camp of Benjamin, the camp of, okay. All right. Kanai, do you want to bring forth anything? All right. She might not be available right now, and that's okay. All right. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to move forward. If no one caught any correlation right now, it's okay. I'm going to tell you, the more that we go through this, you will later.
For one thing, it's just really the obedience to the sacrificial laws. Really, we just see them walking out in obedience to the sacrificial laws. Even when we just read about being unclean, we also knew that when you're unclean, there was a specific offering that you should be giving. So these are the offerings that the Most High basically had gone down the list of offerings that were supposed to be given for different times. And this is just them walking in obedience to that.
All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, we'll go ahead and go to the gospel portion. And at the end of this, I'm going to tell each one of us that we're going to go through this again, just the prophet portion. Because Lamadia says something too. Everybody says something really good. And Lamadia, he mentioned that, usually the Torah portion, it will correlate, or we'll find something similar. Okay, so I'm going to ask at the end of this, we're going to go through it individually ourselves, or maybe, with somebody in the same house. And then we're going to look for if we can find any connection from what we've seen in the gospel and in the prophet to match up. Okay, now let's go ahead and go forward if nobody has anything else to say. All right.
Okay, so gospel
portion. What was that?
I was just going to say what the gospel is.
Oh, it's Luke 23, 22 through 33.
Luke. Is it Luke? It's Luke.
Luke 2. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Luke 2, 22.
You want me to share my screen? I got it up.
Yeah, Con. That's fine. All right. Anybody want to read? Okay, I'll read.
I can read.
Okay, go ahead.
Luke chapter 2, verse 22. And when the days of her purification, according to the law of Moshe, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to Yahweh. As it is written in the law of Yahweh, every male that openeth the womb shall be called holy to Yahweh, and to offer a sacrifice according to that which is said in the law of Yahweh, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. And behold, there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon. The same man was just and devout, waiting for the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Ghost was upon him. And it was revealed unto him by the Holy Spirit that he should not see death before he had seen Yahushua. And he came by the Spirit in the temple. And when the parents brought in the child Yahushua to do for him after the custom of the law, then took he him up in his arms and blessed Yahweh and said, Yahweh, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace according to thy word. For mine eyes have seen thy salvation, which thou hast prepared before the face of all people, a light to lighten the Gentiles, and the glory of thy people Israel. And Joseph and his mother marveled at those things which were spoken of him. Allah.
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 Allah. Allah.
I know. Something that just jumped out to me immediately was right there in the first verse 22, when the days of her purification, according to the law of Moshe. So like here, like you can even use this as like when people be like the law is done away with, or you can't find part of the law. I mean, any of the law in the New Testament, it's right here. And when the days of her purification, according to the law of Moshe, were accomplished, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to Yahweh. So that's something that just popped out to me quickly. That also goes with the law portion of the reading.
Also, we see in the sacrifices they had to do with the 2 turtle doves. Or it was either 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, I think.
So yeah, I see more where the gospel correlates with the law portion versus the prophet in the law portion. Maybe because it's the wording. I mean, I see like the offering, sacrifices or whatever or whatnot.
The biggest connection I see is just like purification and the offerings needed for purification, like seeing it in the works. Cleanliness, purification.
Anybody else? CharrawtazaYah? Kudash? Kwa? Aman? Kanai? Let's see if we got any questions on the board.
Even Mary had to do it. You ain't no better. No, I'm swing.
Right.
I mean, so I would like to point out that just everything is a process. Everything is when it comes to sacrificing. There's a certain way to do a sacrifice. There are certain things you should sacrifice for. There are different kind of sacrifices. And then when it comes to the laws of being clean and unclean, there's a certain way you should behave yourself. When you're clean, you can, basically move around. When you're unclean, you should be set apart. What else did we discuss? That's primarily what we spoke about. And then the sisters brought out some great questions. For me, I don't really have any much more commentary. I think this is a good Torah portion. And then, of course, we spoke about, giving birth and just the time frame in which a woman should be unclean, if it was a girl or if it was a boy, in the process of if it was a boy, that we should take it into consideration to, do that circumcision. So I think we did a pretty good edification today. And like I said, I don't have any more commentary, so I'm going to yield the floor.
It's not a consideration for us. It is you have to. It's a law. Like, it's just, we got to make sure that that women are talking to their midwives, doctors, whatnot, getting everything in order, even if they don't know what they're having. So it's a law. It's a must. It's not a think about. So you have to do what you have to do to get it done.
Keep the law.
Keep the law.
I know I don't have anything else. CharrawtazaYah, do you have anything? Lottie, do you have anything?
I do not. I would encourage everybody to go do this and stick with it throughout the week until we come up to next week's Torah portion. Because next week's Torah portion will be clean and unclean. All right, and it does matter to the Father. It matters to the Most High. All right. So the Scripture says that the priests' lips are to teach knowledge. The scriptures tell us that we are to teach a difference between clean and unclean, between holy and unholy. We're to set apart profane. Okay, so we have to learn this. If you don't know it, then this is the perfect time. If you already know it, then there's never going to be enough of us touching up. So I know for us, the House of CharrawtazaYah, we will be going over the prophet portion again, all right, until we get a breakthrough, until we get some more understanding, which should be a joy for us. It's still the Shabbat. Just because we finished reading for a moment doesn't mean that the Sabbath day is over with. So, the Father tells us that, we rest in Him. we call it Shabbat a delight, a joy. He would make us to ride upon the high places. So we have all week to do what we choose to do. Okay, so I encourage everybody, continue to learn. That's my advice. Continue to learn until you get your breakthrough, until you're spiritually fulfilled. All right, in your time frame and in your resting in Yahweh. And with that, I yield the floor.
Done.
Okay, if no one has anything else, I just want to say the Wadi Yahweh for all those that listened and joined in and commented. The Wadi to our household for coming together.
Salak, 1 second. Make sure you give time. Go through all the comments just in case somebody, may come with a later comment. So before we exit, make sure we give time for someone to speak up if they may need to. All right.
Con, I went through the question that was asked about that Natazar asked about the prince. It was actually a question on the board, so she said the water for answering it, and then went through all of them.
I guess we'll also too, for anybody who heard the information about the circumcision, if you we will look into the numbers and people who you can call, so we'll try to make that readily available for others to be able to research if they are about to give birth and would like to know who to call or who to go to. So we'll try to put that in on Facebook, YouTube. Just be looking out for any one of our pages.
So again, we just want to say the Wada for tuning in and joining us. Let me see this. Let me comment this. The Wada, Sister Wada for joining us. So from the House of CharrawtazaYah, we want to say Shabbat Shalom, Yahweh Shamar Al-Adhan. If you have any questions and you are a female, you can reach out to any of the women that were on here. Myself, Rashwan at Rob, Kanaya Wakanawan, Ashaya, I cannot say her whole name. Amath.
Say it again, sis. We can hear you.
Ashaya Salamath.
Ashaya Shalamath. Natazar Katharia, or she is Stephanie
Ligan
on Facebook, and Kodash Yalad, and even Nakwa. Nakwa is very, very wise in the scripture. She is young, but she is wise. She's wise. So if any younger women on here want to reach out to her, she's a good one to talk to. If you are a male, please reach out to Isaiah Yasharahla. Again, we just want to thank everybody, and we hope everyone enjoys the rest of your Shabbat. Keep the Torah portion in mind throughout the week up until the next Torah portion. And that's it. Wadi Yahweh.
And keep the law.
Wadi Yahweh. Yahweh Shema Al-Adhan.
Yahweh Shema Al-Adhan.
Shalom.
Shalom.